Welcome back to the PetaPixel podcast, everyone. It's one of the highlights of my week because I get to hang out with my good friend. Who's that? Who's that there? Say hi.
Wait, which one's your good friend? Me?
Yeah, like what are we talking about?
I wanted to see who was going to jump on it there. This was a test. So Chris there is the most impulsive. Clearly, he did wind up getting on the mic. And also, I'm here with Jaron Schneider. Say hi, Jaron.
Hi, Jaron.
I'm so good at this, guys. I just want to highlight that every single week. We got a really cool show because if you've been following the photo news at all, big deal. Becca Farsace left The Verge. She does a lot of their camera review videos, and she's gone out on her own. So we wanted to talk to her about that process and how it compares to us still working with a team here at PetaPixel. That's a great conversation. You can look forward to that too. But we're going to also run through the news. We've got lots of technical questions, and we got some speak pipes as well. But before we get to that, I always want to learn a little bit more about my cohorts,
hosts.
You guys. Hey, what's your worst photography related injury?
Oh,
I see where this is going already.
I'm thinking about the two. So one was Chelsea Northrup dared me to pretend to be a motorcycle.
Yeah, that's right.
When we were at a dirt track for the Nikon, what was that, D800?
D850, baby.
D850. And so I made motorcycle noises. I jumped off one of the ramps, but it was really high and I came down hard and winded myself in dust. But stepping on metal rebar downtown at a park, my flip-flop caught on the edge of a piece of metal rebar and it cut right through my big toe and I was bleeding everywhere.
Did you get a tetanus shot?
Yeah, I got a tetanus shot and stitches in between your toes is like a really sensitive area. And that laid me up actually like for a while.
Yeah, I think it was like 2 weeks we were basically unable to go out into the field after that.
Oh, we could. No, like I took an electric wheelchair around the zoo and stuff.
That was right. Yes. Okay.
Yeah. But like I couldn't like go on our normal photo walks for very long. Yeah.
I see you learned your lesson and no longer wear flip-flops around Calgary.
No, I still do. Flip-flops are great.
No, that was sarcasm. Yeah, you definitely still do that.
What you shouldn't do is leave like 4 inches of rebar poking out of the ground in city parks. That's what you shouldn't do.
I can see both sides of this argument here.
No, what?
The one that I can remember, I haven't had anything like that serious, and this one is still not that serious, but like a C-stand, I was young and didn't quite understand like dropping them and raising them. And so I'm sure you know that if you untighten one and it falls, they are very, very tight on where they land. And so if you're holding on to the C-stand and it falls on your skin, it hurts.
Yes.
Especially if there's a light attached to it and a
your
soft
web skin,
box.
your hand web.
So it was like this whole like the C-section. C-section, like here, it just like landed like right there and pinched the entire ring of my hand. And that was exceedingly painful, but not as bad as stitches because of rebar. Or as bad as what you're about to say, Jordan.
Yeah, so this week, you might notice if you're watching the channel that we're a little less mobile. Chris is in a few more set locations, and that's because my wife and I were out, and just like as a favor, a friend of ours was getting married. We're like, we'll shoot a few shots for you. And right at the end, as the sun is about to go down, she's like, could you get like some couples pictures? It's a lot of like candid photos that have been taken of us, but we don't really have like a posed couples portrait. And it's sunset, so I'm like, we need a reflector. Run as fast as I can through a field caked in gopher holes everywhere. And I'm bouncing through them. I'm paying attention to everything. Grab that reflector, get back out there. And it's as I look down to unfold it while I'm running. I should never multitask. I'm not good at it. Hit that gopher hole, sprained my ankle, something fierce, just rolled right over the top. But it was pretty amazing. One of the photographers there, whose name is Jared Middlebrook, is like, oh, I'm heading back to Calgary. I'll take you to the hospital. So photographers are the greatest and best people out there. And if you need a shooter, I can definitely recommend Jared Middlebrook will get you to the nearest hospital in a timely manner with good conversation. So huge.
Or don't run around gopher holes.
Do you know that? Can you recreate the sound that came out of you when you tripped in that gopher hole? Do you know?
Oh, I know it.
Oh, well, because it's a bride and groom standing right in front of me. I'm like 2 feet away. So I do the like high pitch, the like, and then like the devil and take the pictures. The light is going quickly. I'll lay here. So I lay on the ground for a little bit. She got some pictures, and then some other people helped me get onto a big cement block, and I sat there for a bit. Well, she took some actually lovely photos.
Did you shout out? Did you shout out to the heavens? Why?
I didn't. No, that's my son.
That's normally
my eldest child. That's his move. If he hurts himself, it's just like, why? I did not do that, but I should have.
Oh man, yeah. I got a text from Jordan that night, and it was just like, I've injured myself. I could actually probably read it. To me, it was it was good.
Yeah. It was self-pitying for
tripped
sure.
in a gopher hole. Oh, tripped in a gopher hole, helping Ev shoot a wedding. In emergency, waiting for my ankle to be x-rayed. No context from Jordan. I was like,
I didn't need any.
Oh. And then I asked him how much it hurt, and he said a expletive lot. So I'm glad you're alive. Are you in like any kind of cast, or are you just in like a soft?
I got like a tensor bandage on me right now. I'm not going to show people because my foot is still super swollen and gross. So it looks like if I tried to make a foot out of Play-Doh, I'm not a good sculptor. That's what my foot looks like right now.
All right. Well, I hope it's good enough, because next week we're going to have to go down to California. So I hope you can walk around by then.
You're going to walk a lot.
Apple will hire an employee to just piggyback me around there, because
I don't think they will.
Their employees are not people.
Jeez. All right, we're. Jeez, let's just get into it. My goodness.
Let's go to the podcast. All right, so of course, our podcast would not be possible without our sponsors, OM-Sys. And we want to talk about how wildlife photography, capturing it is amazing, but it's difficult. I mean, you're trying to get rare, fast-moving subjects, from a distance without compromising your image quality. Luckily, OM System has a fantastic way to do that. It gives you an impressive reach of up to 1,200 millimeters with their new 150 to 600 mil F5.0-6.3 IS lens. You get 5-axis image stabilization. It's stunning. It's sharp. I've used it. I like it. It's IPX1 certified, so you can take it out into the worst environments, and it's going to survive. And most importantly, it gets you that excellent reach. You should actually check out some of these photos from OM System ambassadors Tiffany Taxis and Art Leffo. They took this out. They were making a film about their photography working in Yellowstone National Park. Beautiful place to shoot animals. You should check out the film. There's a link in the description below, but also look at these nice photos while we talk. So whether you're capturing majestic birds or elusive wildlife, that 150 to 600 delivers up to 7 stops of stabilization, lets you shoot like handheld with good confidence, knowing you're going to get good stability. Even with the 2400 millimeter field of view, when paired with an MC-20 teleconverter, it's going to hold nice and steady. It's more than just a telephoto lens, though. It's also great for macro. So 0.7 times magnification at about half a meter, which is not bad. You get 1.4 times magnification if you use that MC-20 as well. So you can actually do really good close-up stuff without having to stuff the lens right into the subject. You got focus limiters, focus modes, IS settings, programmable lens functions. You get lots of control on this lens. Right now, it's a fantastic chance to save. You're going to save a lot of money on this. Right now, the M.Zuiko Digital ED 150 to 600 millimeter F5.0-6.3 IS is available at a special price of $2,299.99. $400 savings. It used to be $2699.99. Pair that with an M.Zuiko Digital 2x converter, the MC-20. That's normally $429. Now it's $299. So basically $530 on that bundle. You're going to get fantastic savings, but only if you get there before September 29th. So please do hurry. Head over to your local authorized OM System retailer or visit explore.omsystem.com/PetaPixel. Learn more. Take advantage of these amazing deals. They're time sensitive. You want to get on that.
Thank you, Chris. And thank you, OM.
No problem.
All right. As Chris takes a break from his vocal cords for a moment, let's go turn this over to Jordan, because GoPro today, technically it's tomorrow as we're recording, but today as we're publishing, they announced a new GoPro Hero 13 Black. And we didn't publish a review at launch for various reasons, but I did want to give Jordan a chance to discuss his initial impressions of it, compared especially to last year, which not many of you were very excited about, which makes sense. There wasn't a ton new about it. How's it doing this year?
Yeah, I think it. So first of all, I haven't processed anything from it yet. I'm still shooting, just enjoying messing around with it a little bit. But the big upgrades this year, first of all, they've got a magnetic mount. If you're not going to shoot it somewhere super demanding, like on the outside of a car or something like that, just gives you a nice, easily detachable mount. So you don't have to. We've all unscrewed the little thing and pulled the thing and done the thing. And this is much better if you wanted to do like have multiple mounts around a space. You could just very quickly pop it from one spot to the other. But the biggest thing for me is they've tweaked the lenses. Now, they've had an ultra wide lens before in the past, but basically with that, it's great for like point of view stuff, but it's an extreme wide angle. What they've done this year is they've introduced, they call it the macro lens, but it's a lens with an actual focus ring on it. So now you can select focus, have your focus locked, and focus much closer, do little focus pulls with it, which is very cool. And they've released their own NDs. You've been able to get GoPro NDs forever, which is really useful if you want to get nice natural looking movement in your shot or do like some photography with long exposures. But what's really cool with this is it'll recognize there's little chips on all of the lenses. So it'll say like, hey, in this light at this frame rate to get a natural look, you want to grab your ND4 filter and snap that on there. And it'll pop it on and detect it and properly expose the image with that. So it'll recommend for you which ND filter to grab, which is pretty sweet. And they're bringing out an anamorphic one, which will do the de-squeeze for you right in software because it knows the squeeze factor on that. But that one we don't have yet. That's coming later. So yeah, just a nice upgrade on that. In terms of overall spec, I think they're using the same sensor. I wasn't able to get a clear response on that, but we really like that more boxy 8x7 sensor, almost square. So I'm glad they kept that aspect ratio with it. And honestly, the quality last year was really good with that new GoPro log. So having that moving forward, plus the new lens support, it just seems like they've really worked towards usability is the emphasis this year.
Yeah.
They added battery life, right? Or they made the battery last longer, something along the lines, right?
Yeah, it's a new battery on it, so it's going to last a little bit longer, and they really emphasize that thermal performance is better.
Which has been a haranguing issue on these for a while.
Anytime you're in an enclosed space, like I think we can say next week we're doing a car cast. I'm looking forward to recording that on the GoPro, and hopefully it won't overheat on us. We're going to find out.
We shall see.
Okay, thanks for that. We'll have more
Review
to talk about
coming soon.
Yes. We're holding it for reasons.
There's other stuff. You'll know soon enough.
It will happen. Yes.
Yep.
Okay. Speaking of batteries, Jordan, the Canon R5 II has recording limitations when using older batteries that weren't disclosed by Canon in any of their manuals. So you did some testing to verify this.
Well, in this one, it was actually a real issue for us. We were blindsided by this because I was like, look, I love C-Log 2. Chris, let's go shoot an episode on the R5 II when we did the Light Lens Lab video. So I grabbed just a regular battery from a R6 II here, an LPE6NH, I believe, to go along with our LPE6P, the new battery that comes in the R5 II. And we ran out of power on the one. We switched it over to the older battery and found. Now they said you're going to lose 8K recording if you use the older battery. And we're like, that's fine.
Okay
we're doing 4K. So you also lose all of the fine recording, the oversampled 4K record modes on this. But that's not all. You lose every frame rate except 30p in any record capture.
Weird.
Yeah,
so
the 30
even if you're down to
doesn't make sense to
1080p, it's only 1080p 30 frames per second if you use that other battery, which is
that also makes no sense.
Yeah. You like if it's just a power limitation, 24 should use less, and especially 1080. I'm sure I know that subsampled on that sensor, so it's not going to be that demanding. Just give me like 1080 2460. That seems silly, and I have no idea why at this point.
Yeah, we asked, and Canon USA is looking into this, is all they said. And I think, look, it's not that big a deal if we knew. If they they disclosed it. But this is now the second thing. And the first one was, to me, not a big deal when they didn't tell us how bright the EVF was.
Yeah.
Fine, whatever. But to leave this out, is problematic, especially for someone who's just jumping into the field, who like they read the manual. But like, let's assume they read the entire manual. Like, cool, I can forego 8K, not worried about that.
Yeah.
And then they get out there, and it's not just that; it's more. And then they're going to think that there's something wrong with their camera, or that they're doing something
all-eye
wrong.
recording, none of that. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I just want them to disclose these things. It's fine, just say it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And look, it's like, okay, yeah, sure, new camera. You can get new batteries. You can get one with a camera. They're not super expensive, but at the same time, you have to appreciate that Canon users, they've kept this battery design forever, and people have quite the collection of batteries, right? And it's rare that you've ever had these kind of limitations. Usually it's like, okay, reduce battery life. Maybe you can't shoot at the fastest frame rates, fastest burst rates. But this is like, it's basically telling you like, look, if you're going to need to do it for any video application, throw your old batteries in the garbage. Like there's just really no practical point to using them. So,
well, and I also don't think it's power consumption, because then I plugged it into power with the old battery, and all of those same options were still grayed out, which makes no sense to me.
Yeah, that's a coding issue that they've decided that battery is extremely limited, even though it is a first-party Canon battery from last year. So
they might as well have just gone with a totally new battery format or something like that. I don't mean like there's, it's kind of funny.
Yeah, bigger battery, offer better battery life, because the backwards compatibility on that is, a real problem. And they were very clear when the R5C came out, like, look, there are limitations if you're using this camera with the included battery. You're not going to get high speed. Your lens will power down if you're doing high speed raw recording. So, but at least they were very clear about that. This is weird.
There you go. Get new batteries. That's the name of the game. Get the P's.
Last week, Tamron announced that the 50-400 f4.5-6.3 lens,
good lens,
that was announced in 2022, is coming to Nikon Z mount.
Mm-hmm.
That's great. It's super sharp, and it's going to be less expensive than the Nikkor. I believe it's the 80-400 that they've already got out there. So it's nice to have a little more options. And I really like having a telephoto that goes down to a normal range. What do you think, Chris?
Yeah, I mean, what I was impressed by is, of course, it's got that big zoom range. It is nice to have that 50 because you can couple it with like a 1635 or something like that, or 1735. And with those two lenses, you're basically covered. But it's also really compact, and Tamron's always done a great job of that. Obviously, it's not a fast lens, but you get good image stabilization. It's got tons of controls. It's sharp, and it's compact. And so it's nice to get that kind of versatility with such an easy to carry around package.
Does it physically extend when you zoom?
It does, yes.
I'm assuming so.
Yeah, it pops out. But I just find it really interesting. It looked like Nikon was really saying, okay, Tamron, you can bring out glass that doesn't directly compete with our offerings. This lens really does. So that's interesting to me. Maybe we're going to see a few more opening up going forward.
Maybe there's just like a few years sort of like hiatus, like an agreement, a non-compete clause, and now that's out the window and it's like, okay, here we go. So, which would be great. I mean, I'm all for more third-party options across all the mounts.
Yeah.
Canon.
I like how you just stopped there. Canon. Oh, man. All right. So last week and the week before, I put out a call to anyone listening who actually put money into Abode, or as Chris calls it, Abode incorrectly, which was last year a project by Stuart Semple that was designed to create a brand new perpetual software for photographers and graphic designers and whatnot. He had promised a whole creative suite. It raised about a little more than £250,000. It certainly wasn't like a huge amount of money. It was a lot, but when you think about building software from scratch, not really. Well, backers are the only ones who could see updates on the Kickstarter. So we're like, okay, we need to ask the company. They did eventually respond to us after we tried. And then we also asked all y'all if anyone had backed it, what's being said. We found out, so I'll read it to anyone who's curious. In the most recent update titled Long Overdue Update. Hi, everyone. Sorry I've not been in touch for a bit. I've been working super hard on the project. Obviously, there's a delay with this one. I hope to get the software to you in the spring, and we are now going into the summer. This was a couple months ago. Unfortunately, the geeks who are working with me on it were a bit unreliable, and I've had to switch out 2 new people. They're working hard, and it's looking good, but I need to be upfront about the fact that it's not going to be ready for a bit longer. It's a hugely ambitious piece of work. No kidding.
Yeah.
I know it's disappointing news, but to do this properly, I'm going to need to manage expectations, let you know that it'll be like the end of the year now. Doubt.
Wow. Another 6 months. Yeah.
The project has gone over budget. Surprise. And I'm continuing to support it myself. And I'm very excited to get you your software. Please keep the faith. It'll be worth it. Okay.
Yeah.
A lot of the responses to this were not believing him. One that is my favorite is, I feel like a complete sucker, was a comment in the Kickstarter. And
They got the sweater. How could you feel like a sucker if you got the sweatshirt?
They are still publicly saying that they plan to do it, that the patience is going to pay off, and that by the end of the year, there will be a competitor software from Abode that will be able to replace Adobe. There you go.
So then I have a question here, Jaron. Like, obviously we've showcased some of the negative ones where people are like, were there any Abode backers who were like, I'm still totally confident it's going to come out and I can't wait to live in my new Abode? Like, is that what they were like? Are there some positive ones, or is the general gist that everybody's like, yeah, he got us?
I don't know, because I didn't do the research on this story. This was done by one of our other writers. This is done by Jeremy. So you can read the comments. That is the one thing that is public.
Right, yes.
So if you're curious to see if anyone is interested in actually, I'm sure there are those who are like, I believe in you. But an overwhelming sentiment was the opposite. And I think that is kind of more pushed because Stuart has been doing other projects in the meantime. So he's not actually just focused on this. Like, he has a hot sauce launched earlier this year called Anal Apocalypse. And like, okay. And there was another project that they tried to do a campaign for a dumb phone, like a smartphone that was not smart. Okay. But that one didn't do well either. But these are just stuff he's been doing since Abode was launched. So it's like he's not really focused on it, and that's not instilling confidence in the backers.
Can we review the hot sauce on the pod? I don't want
to buy something from
You don't want to support?
No.
Come on. He's a
George
simple
just loves
man.
a good Anal Apocalypse. That's all. It's he's always up for that.
How much does it cost?
I guess the thing too is, like, we have to remember that Stuart Semple, and he even says this himself, right? Like, his work is satirical, right? And I know he sort of did the Kickstarter campaign saying, I want to do this as a sort of big FU to Adobe and as like a democratic grassroots way of making another product that people actually use. But at the same time, and then, you look at his other projects he's trying to start, it really feels more like performance art and satire. So I personally don't really feel like the emphasis is going to be on making a viable product. I think maybe in 6 months we're going to see something come out, and it's going to be this kind of like artistic statement, not
oh my
software.
Goodness, that would piss so many people off. So
that's what I think is going to happen. Yeah.
All right.
So as an artist, I think he's absolutely going to release something because he wants to. I mean, that's kind of his raison d'etre for doing this. But at the same time, I think it's going to be disappointing. Yeah.
All right. Last story. Finally, Peak Design has outdoor adventure backpacks. They launched them the morning of the podcast recording, so on Tuesday.
Right.
The claims are the outdoor line has addressed loin. Why did I say it like that? The outdoor line addresses things like poor fit, overly bulky harness systems, limited access, and over-engineered, technically Baroque designs. That's their quote. So I have one right here. Oh, yeah. Right. So I have I have both bags. I have both sizes that I'm going to be evaluating. I'll probably have this with me in California next week.
Nice.
But there are some things that I can comment on right now that I've been thinking about. One, this is heavy. It's empty. And it's like
4 pounds.
4.5. Yeah. It's heavy. Notably so. Not
I don't like heavy bags.
Yeah, it's not super uncommon for camera bags with a cube insert to be kind of heavy, even if they're adventure bags. Like Shimoda's is not light.
I have a Shimoda bag that's quite light.
Okay.
But it depends on the model. Yeah.
I have like one of their adventure bags. It's my number one pick and has been for a while for like adventure backpacks for like that can hold camera stuff. I'll definitely do a side-by-side comparison on them at some point. But the other thing that I found sort of weird that they did here is they sort of forego all of the design stuff that they've done in the past. The use of magnets is pretty slim. There's like one magnet that I've seen so far, and it's like this top part. They've done other things instead. Like this is a drawstring system, and this is where the magnet is. So like it's a fold top, and then this drawstring pulls it back tight, which is kind of a neat design, cool. But this chest strap, the sternum strap as they call it, they aren't using the system they had before. And I don't know if you can tell very easily. I'll try to hold it up here. Look how thin this is. This is the sternum strap. It's like a shoelace. It ships with two of them, but like I don't want to have to do that. And also like hooking it is super awkward. It's not easy to do one-handed, which is I think really important for a good sternum strap. So like, well, there are other aspects of this bag that I really like. I like the top part I mentioned. I really like that. I think the cubes are nice. I don't like this thing. And there's also no place to stash this excess string. It just hangs. That really bothers me. So those are just some initial thoughts. The build quality is great. It's very comfortable, but it's heavy. And the straps are just stringy.
I'm eager to take a look at it next week. I've personally, and again, it's so subjective with bags. I've personally never really liked the Peak Design products.
You're not alone.
Yeah, but at the same time, I know a lot of people really love them. So I'm sure it will do well. I'm sure it'll get attention. I would absolutely take a look at it next week and see. But yeah.
The Kickstarter was doing very well. It's doing very well. So it's already 100,000 more than when I checked when we started the podcast recording. We're up to $361,000 backed. And as anyone who knows Peak Design, they always do this. They always
Abode?
Kickstarter. More than Abode. Yeah, it's already made more than Abode in hours, and there's still 42 days left.
Yeah,
so
people love their Peak Design,
and I can promise you, it's an actual product. So that's helpful. All right. That's the news. Let's get on with our interview and chat with Becca Farsace. We'll cut to that now. Okay, and we're joined by Becca Farsace, who is formerly of The Verge and is now doing her own thing on the YouTubes. Before we get too far into this, I do want to mention that Jordan is waiting for the doorbell to ring. So if he needs to run off and there's just a blank shot of his chair, that's because he needs to pick something up. He's not trying to avoid the conversations here. But
maybe he'll put his puppet in place or something like that. I don't know. We'll see.
That's on the other side of the room. Okay.
But if I run away, I'm trying to avoid conversation. So
perfect.
Just know that.
Noted.
Fair enough.
Excellent. Well,
I don't blame you.
Becca, for those who might not know who you are and what's going on, why don't you give us a brief intro, talk about your background a little bit, your history of photography, that sort of thing.
Yeah, my name is Becca Farsace, as you said. I was a video producer at The Verge for 7 years. I started as a junior video producer, video director, and I knew very little about creating content for the internet. But I've always loved cameras and tech, and that kind of love of tech and such propelled me to doing what I do today, which is tell the world about new tech products, which is really cool.
I actually did not know you were there for 7 years. That's longer than I've been at PetaPixel. You were there for a while.
Whoa. Yeah, I was there for a long time. Saw it through many iterations of itself. Met some of my very best friends and just learned so much about both creating content, being a journalist, but also life, because I was there for right out of college, all through my 20s.
Right.
Yeah, so it was a wild time. A lot of fun.
What a cool gig, though, right out of college. Sorry, Jordan.
Well, no, actually, college is what I was a little bit curious about, because you've actually done a video about this, kind of like a film school adjacent kind of thing for a few years. Have you always been were you a movie person, or were you into cameras? What initially made you even want to go in that direction?
Yeah, well, film school was mildly embarrassing at times because I always learned through video. I'm pretty dyslexic and I hate reading. And I just had ADD. And so reading and writing was never my thing. I always wanted to be making videos, and I always learned through images. And so I went to film school because well, that's how I learned and that's what I loved. But I was never super into like cinema, right? So I didn't have like favorite directors and I didn't know a lot about film history. So that was a little strange, but I always loved making imagery. So like that's why I was there. And I don't regret it. I did 4 years at School of Visual Arts in New York City, small art school. And pretty much that time was learning more about how to be an adult in New York City. And in a lot of ways, the city raised me. And I don't regret any of that. But it was strange at times because a lot of folks I went to college with are like now like DPs on like, big ad campaigns or movies. But I quickly learned that set life was not for me. I didn't love like the 17-hour days and all that. But I did love playing with cameras and, making stuff via images.
So people ask this question to us all the time of like, I guess it's a two-part question, is like how you get into then putting yourself on camera and making yourself the brand and putting your face out there. Like what kind of background do you think helped you be able to do that presentation? And then I guess the other part of that is, did you start behind the camera and then move to the front of it?
Yeah. I want to know you guys too. Are you going to answer these questions too?
You answer and then fire you back at them. Make them answer. Yes.
Okay, cool. Sounds good. So when I was a kid, for my birthday every year, I used to make all my friends come over and make a video. Like I just loved kind of performing, but not in the live sense. Like I loved that I could edit it and make it better. And so naturally, I was always just kind of in front of the camera, and like both my mom and my dad like filmed us a lot growing up. So I guess I was just used to it. But when I started at The Verge, I was strictly behind camera, just because that's like my job was to film other reporters. And there became a need for more folks who wanted to be in front of camera, because reporters were constantly busy doing other stuff. So I just was like, well, I can do it. And then that also being in front of camera allowed me more control in the edit as well, because I could deliver lines the way I wanted to. And I kind of knew the pacing of the video before I was even, filming it. What about you folks?
You go ahead,
I
Chris.
started, I guess I'll go first. I started, I did a lot of drama and stuff like that when I was a kid, like really young kid. I didn't, drama. I had lots of drama and lots of drama in my childhood, and it shapes you. And I did a lot of like school plays. I liked performing as well. I think that's maybe a part of it. I liked the attention. I liked the performance part of it. But then as I got into my teenage years, I kind of became just like a quiet teenager, and I didn't like put myself out there or anything. And then I started teaching, I think was the big sort of kickback into that, because in a way, like teaching is to me a performance, and you're scripting something and you're sharing that knowledge with other people. And that is effectively what we're doing, right? I mean, I kind of treat the camera like a classroom, or at least I certainly did at the start. And so that's how I got into it.
Yeah, and I just always wanted to shoot things. I never had any intention of being on the camera. That was just something that developed kind of organically over time. Is like, Jordan, why don't you just come out and quickly talk about video features on this camera? And then it slowly shifted over. And it's still not, I mean, Chris will attest, there's a heavy sigh right before I'm about to go present something on camera. I'm much happier behind it. But
he's mentally and physically exhausted afterwards.
It completely wipes me out. If I host
but he
a video,
does a great job. Yeah, he does a great job.
I'm a sleepy boy immediately afterwards. Where, I could film all day. That doesn't
grumpy,
faze me.
sleepy, hungry, all those. Yeah.
I'm sort of with Jordan.
I would have never known that, Jordan.
I don't like being in front of the camera much either. I don't even like my picture taken. I was doing commercial video for years, like shooting in San Francisco for projects for different companies. Just, I specialized in doc work. Like, this is the story of our company and our product, that sort of thing. And I loved that because I didn't have to be on camera and I could make other people be on camera. So yeah, I don't love this, but I like talking with my friends. So it sort of just takes away the idea of the camera. I forget it's there.
It's a lot, right, Becca? I mean, you can attest to this, like being in front of the camera, it's a lot. And especially on YouTube, like the reactions, the comments. I mean, we've all been there and we all know that. So yeah, it's a big ask in a lot of ways.
That actually is a good segue, because part of your video that you made that is doing so well right now is that you talked about how the pandemic changed video production. So like, can you talk a little bit about why you started a YouTube channel for yourself during the pandemic, and like how that helped you cope, and like how you like adjusted to going from working with teams to sitting in your own apartment talking to a camera by yourself?
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm going to back this up again to like growing up. I wasn't like a loner as a kid, but I definitely liked to spend a lot of time alone, just kind of making stuff. And I've recently been digitizing all my old tapes from when I was a kid. And I forgot that I even made these. I would just like set up a camera and just like, I don't know, perform in front of it, like play the piano or like do silly dances and voices and such. And so like foundationally, I spent a lot of time just like staring at a camera making stuff. And so when the pandemic happened and we were all alone, like I found myself naturally just doing that again in this really strange way. And so I bought my A7C, which I still use today. I love that camera. And the idea was kind of like to play, and naturally tech was going to seep into that because that's what I was like doing on camera. And yeah, so that's kind of what started happening. I was also making videos alone for the first time in a long time, and definitely the first time in my professional career. And so it's just a way to kind of play and get creative again. And I even find now when I like sit down on my computer and I have a big edit to do and I'm like having trouble getting into it, I'll just like start making something silly in the edit first. And I'll just start playing, and it kind of spurs my creativity. So that was a big driver there. But I definitely missed my friends directing me a lot at first. And like going back and watching like old like stand-ups that I was shooting where I would just like stare at the camera for 10 minutes because there was like no one else to like make jokes. So it was like really rough. Now I've gotten used to it almost to a fault where I like prefer to like film alone. But yeah, it was weird at first. Yeah.
That was one of the things I was really curious about, is what role everyone in the team is taking there, like coming from something like that. Like, are people helping you script what you're presenting? How much of the edit workload was on you? Like, how much could you delegate essentially at The Verge?
Yeah, I'm a horrible delegator. But when I was starting out, I really relied on like notes in the script first, like very first. So like I would write a script and then it would go out for notes, and then everyone would like, pull it apart into a million pieces, and then we'd bring it back into something like really great. So that was like step one. And then when we were filming together, I don't like teleprompters because I'm really dyslexic. So like it's just like hard for me to like follow them. And so then folks were behind the camera making sure I said the right things, or, in the video you'll hear in my Why I Left video, you hear someone say like, why don't you like say that a little bit slower? So there was somebody there kind of helping me with that. And then I'd get into the edit and I'd edit all my own stuff, but lots of notes on like, I think you need to change this song, or the pacing's not right here, or try different B-roll. So there was literally like my friends with me at every step of the way. Which was great at first. And needed. It helps build confidence too. When someone else says, yeah, that's great, it's like, oh, it must be great then.
Yeah. That's an interesting thing to say though, because like part of our conversation we want to have is you've moved on from The Verge, right? You're going from a publication to being now just an independent creator on your own. Whereas Jordan and I have always liked working as a team. I would argue that when we started the camera store, we were basically an independent team from the camera store. They didn't have a lot of input, right? Like they left us to our own devices, but we've always had each other. And that dynamic has remained the same the whole time. And then we've always liked working with the team. So yeah, what's that transition like where you had that group and you have that feedback and you have that information that's being given to you from another perspective, and now it's on you to do that all yourself?
Yeah. Okay, I'll go back to like who I am as a person. Recently I went on this huge 17-mile hike, and half of it was untrailed. But I got like halfway through it, I got like to the untrailed part, and I just like, at no point did my mind say quit. Like at no point did my mind say turn around. And there was points where I was like, should I be thinking that I should turn around? but I just like didn't. And that's just kind of like who I am. Like, I'm just going to keep going through the trees and the bushes and like, because I know that like I'll reach something eventually. And so it's kind of the same way when I lost all of my like support. It's like, well, this is where I am now, and I'm just going to keep going, for better or for worse. And so a similar thing happened, I think, during the pandemic. It's like, well, here we are, and like I can't stop, I can't go back, right? So yeah, it was weird, but it brought me to where I am now. But like with you guys as well, when the pandemic hit, were you still filming together? Like, what happened?
I mean, for the first little bit, we were separate, and then we just shot outside. You know, I actually, I it wasn't even a joke. I shot him with long lenses for a while there.
Wow, funny.
That's how the bills were paid. So yeah, we did a couple things. I think it was like 4 months of like Zoom things, and then. But then actually what I wanted to talk about, and this ties in really to this week as well, is when Chris and I are filming, like you said, we have that back and forth about what we're saying and the script and the, you know, it's easy to like flub a spec or something if you've got another person. This week I had to film myself because Chris was unavailable. And then I, as we'll have talked about already earlier in this episode, rolled my ankle. So Chris had to film himself. And I find that incredibly difficult not to have the feedback of like, oh, we can tighten that up. We can get to this point faster. Here's a different way that we can do it. So now that you're on your own, like where are you going to get feedback from before you publish? Or are you just going to say like, hey, it's good enough. I like it. It's my show. We're going to hit publish now.
Yeah. Wait, can I ask you a question first?
Yes.
Yeah.
When you're both filming alone, what's like the hardest thing about that for you? Like, where does your mind go?
I don't know. It might be different for both of us. Like, you know, we, like Jordan said, we do give each other a lot of feedback, and it's nice to have, we approach things differently. Jordan likes to script his sort of thoughts out and his processes out, which I think actually works really well because I can tell when he's speaking, he's got his whole mindset laid out. He knows where he's going with it. You know, it might take a few tries, but I mean, he has his sort of concept. And I definitely don't script. I like to do more of like, I have the points that I want to talk about in my head, and I like to kind of on the fly form it into something. But then that's a different dynamic because Jordan can see that there's often times where it takes a few tries to like formulate that as something coherent, or he'll be like, what you just said sounds ridiculous. Like that didn't make sense, you know? And so it's nice to have that. I feel like if I didn't have that, I would probably just sound ridiculous all the time. Right. So I appreciate having that sort of check and balance kind of thing, but also just from a physical standpoint, like it's great to have another human being there to help you. Like you take for granted how nice it is to have like someone to like hit the record button for you and say, yeah, we're rolling, and like move the camera angle for you and you know, and like try different compositions and stuff. And so I think that's always been a really powerful dynamic for us that we've really appreciated having. It's nice to have that workload shared. I still make him carry most of the gear, but that's because he insists on having like this huge think tank bag with tons of space in it. And yeah, it's his fault, not mine.
Yeah, we'll stick with that story.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's incredible.
What about you, Jordan?
I mean, for me, like I really want to get Chris's feedback because I script everything by myself. Like I said, I know what I'm trying to convey with that, but that's why I asked you, Becca, like, where do you get that feedback from? Because I need that feedback.
Yeah.
Maybe it's just a lack of security or something like that. But the other day while I'm out filming myself, I have a really tough time. Like I'm second guessing myself the whole time that I'm just speaking to myself, where I think if I can look over at another human being and be like, they're paying attention, you know, they're listening to what I'm saying. If they're engaged, that makes it a lot easier for me to get through it. Like I can say when I tried to do things the way Chris did, where I was just going bullet point and then trying to rattle it off, and we'd be like 12 takes into it. I can't work that way. So now if I write everything out, I know where I want to go. And then I'm basically looking to Chris for confirmation and validation that I'm putting something worthwhile out there.
Yeah.
And I'll just add on there quick, like not just validation, but also, and I think everybody kind of deals with this, is when you start working in tech and you're working with camera gear, and you know we do this every week, it's very easy for us to be like, well, I know what I'm talking about. I know what these terms are. I know what these phrases are. I'm going to assume that the viewer understands all this jargon and all this information and stuff, and they don't always, right? So sometimes it's nice to just have somebody be like, I get what you're saying, but let's reword it so that somebody new will get what you're saying. And so that kind of stuff I think is really important as well.
Yeah, the feedback is important, and definitely something I'm going to have to get used to, because at The Verge, I was still sending my videos to, like, many folks at The Verge to watch down. But I learned a while ago that, like, it's just so important to have a group of people that you trust. In life, it's like what our friends are, but also in creating. And I just have, like, a really good core group of people that I'm like, hey, can you just watch this down? Like, does this make sense? And there are people who aren't afraid to be like, Becca, this is not good. And I trust them, and I want to hear that from them, but I also know that they'll tell me when it's great. And so I do have those people. And so, and sometimes I feel like I'm annoying them. Like, I'll even send them like, hey, I'm going to post this to Threads. Is this funny? Like, but just having a close group of people has been super helpful. And they don't have to be people you work with,
Right.
Hell, they don't even have to be people in tech. Sometimes that's better. It's like, does this make sense to you? Someone who doesn't know, I don't know what shutter speed is.
Yeah.
So,
this is I want to mention this before I forget, Becca, because I know that you mentioned you don't like writing, and that was like one of the things you didn't like about working for publications, because you had to put all your videos in Word form. You're not alone. Chris also has to do that. I make him do that, and it's not his favorite either.
I don't mind it.
Oh, you've gotten better. Okay. Initially,
Well,
he was like,
know.
now he's
Yeah. No, I like having that secondary aspect of the creative process. But, sometimes when you write afterwards, it's not that your opinion changes, but like other things come out. Like, I feel like the article is a great opportunity to flesh out some of the thoughts that you may not have get across in the video and stuff like that. But it is a lot. Yeah. It's a lot for sure. And
Yeah, one magical day we'll be able to add things to YouTube videos. That would be great, as opposed to just snipping things out that you screwed up. Be like, oh yeah, I really could. I forgot that feature, or could explain this better now, having thought about it a little. And I'm the same way when I'm editing a project. I'm constantly like, oh, we could have said this in a different way, things like that. That's kind of a constant battle.
But I want to bring this up as well, like, because we kind of share this dynamic, and so we've worked for the camera store where we had a lot of independent control, maybe too much.
No one knew what we were doing.
We worked for, and then we worked for DP Review, and like that was a team as well, and it was a good solid team, people who knew what they were talking about, but owned by Amazon, lots of management, and so there was a lot of oversight. I imagine The Verge was probably pretty similar, and so I guess I want to ask you, Becca, like, what was that experience like? Because as a creator, I know to a large degree, I want to have independence to say what I want to say and to like express myself creatively how I want to express myself and show my personality. And so did you ever feel at The Verge that you were, stifled's not the right word, but do you ever feel like you were sort of like limited or had to fit into a certain kind of thing or change certain aspects in order to make that work for the publication?
I was very lucky. The Verge trusted me a lot, more so than I think. No, I think they trusted me the right amount. But sometimes I was like, I can't believe they said yes to that. So I was very fortunate to kind of just go make stuff. And The Verge is really good once you are trusted, which can be hard to get to. You can just make stuff. And that was the beautiful thing about it. The only time I felt... I can't even really think of a time that that didn't exist. I think building up the trust, though, took a while. And the harder part was them saying, yes, you can have this review unit. And I talk about this a little bit in the Why I Left video, is that it was really hard to get like the bigger products to review. Like it literally had to be like someone else didn't want to do it, and then I would get it. And that's where I felt held back. Because like I say in the video, their main focus is their website and like the written side of the website. And I wasn't going to write the like 10,000 word review on something. Like I was going to make the video, and that's not what they were really always looking for. So that's when I felt held back, and I had to get creative. Like, how can I make this video after embargo and people still care? Because that's when I'll get the review unit, which is... I mean, I think what you'll find is I always find the silver lining to things. But like the silver lining to that was like, you learn how to make a different take than everybody else, because everybody's already has their review out. So it's like, how can I be different? And like working that side of my brain has been really helpful going forward. But
Is there
that's when I
anything
felt
that you're like really excited to double back to now? Like, I'm annoyed I didn't get a chance to work with that or talk about that at The Verge, but now it's my channel, baby, so I'm going to do it. That's what your interior monologue sounds like, I'm sure. Yeah.
Exactly. It's crazy. I just thought that was me thinking out loud. I'm much like the hiking thing where like I just find a way to keep going. I don't usually go back. So there's not really anything I'm looking to like go back on and do. But I am excited for the opportunity to just have like something that's fully my own voice with no like other company logo in front of it.
Yeah.
Because again, I said this in my video, like for better or for worse, if there was a Verge logo with my work, people have a feeling about the Verge. And sometimes that's really positive and sometimes that's really negative. But that would, go hand in hand with how they feel about me. And now they can just feel a certain way about me.
Right.
How do you folks feel about that? Because you've gone through many different logos at this point.
Yeah, like, I mean, I really like the team that we work with right now, and not just because our
I can
editor-
leave if you would prefer to talk about me
yeah, if
behind
you
my
don't
back.
mind, can you just go take a bathroom break so I can dish on you?
Do that, yeah.
But we've always liked having the support of having a team, and I particularly like the PetaPixel team because frankly it's even smaller, and it's like it really is more like a group of friends talking about, hey, like what's the best product that we can release, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so I really like that aspect of it. And at the same time, and I'm sure you're getting this now maybe in a positive way, we were always getting like from a very supportive team of creators and all our friends at the press events and viewers as well, so many viewers. We got a lot of like, well, why don't you guys just go independent? Like, why don't you do your own thing? Why would you work with another company? Like, and sometimes they were supportive and sometimes like, you're crazy. You guys are like idiots. What's wrong with you? Right.
Yep.
That's the whole
verbatim.
spectrum of responses. And so we got a lot of that pressure, and we kind of have to tell people like we do like this environment of working with another team and having that feedback and having that kind of thing. But it's a different dynamic. So for you, well, that's right. And the other thing that I would say that we were really fascinated by, and I want to ask you about this, Becca, is we found that switching brands, like we've done it so many times now, or like, oh, you're just like throwing subscribers away and starting over again. But it's like, switching publications, what we notice is the brand is really Jordan and I. That's what people want to watch. That's what people follow, which is great to find out and really see that validation. So for you, where do you see that branding? Like, have you got a similar response? Like, are people saying it's Becca that we're watching? That's the experience we want to have.
Yeah. Well, first I want to say that, your branding is incredibly strong, and you two both have like such a style. Like it didn't matter what logo was in front when I clicked on a video and it was, Chris, your face on the thumbnail. Like I knew what I was getting regardless of where you went. And I think that's super cool. But yeah, I was feeling the same, I think when people started recognizing like the full frame series that I had at The Verge, that said something to me, because like full frame, I don't know what they're going to do with it now. But when I was there, basically any video I made was a full frame video, and it was just like the branding for Becca video. And so when people started saying like, oh, I can't wait for you to make a full frame about this, I was like, oh shoot, like they're asking for me, like they're asking for like my brand, my thing.
Yeah.
And that was a little bit of a sign. But yeah, I just started to feel like the videos I was making were really different from what everybody else was making at The Verge. And yeah, it just felt like I was starting to branch off in a way.
Yeah, I can certainly say they had a very different feel than a Verge video, a lot of those. One of the big things that really stands out to me is I think a lot of people get very jaded and almost try to hide when something really like delights them, where I loved like the Hasselblad X100C that you recently put out. Like you can't quantify it really, but you're just like, this makes me happy and I'm just going to, express that. And that's something that did feel very different from The Verge. And I think it's why so many people respond so strongly to what you put out there is you seem to like using the stuff, which is awesome.
Yeah, thanks for saying that. Yeah, I mean, The Verge is like full of journalists, and like they're gonna get like the full story, and they're really good at separating their like feelings from like the facts. And I of course strive to do that as well. But so much of the way I experience tech is like feeling it, and like the story that it tells me, and like the adventure it takes me on. And that's, that is at odds with sometimes like a more typical journalistic approach.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How do you feel like your videos are going to change now going forward? Like what can people expect to see that goes even a little bit different from what they've seen so far?
Yeah, I was thinking about this question in the car. So I think what folks haven't been seeing is that for the last definitely year, when I was making videos for The Verge, I just started to get, I want to put this right. Hold on. I'm going to take my time.
For sure.
Time.
When you sit down in front of a camera, and you're excited about something, like you want that emotion to come through. But for the last year of working at The Verge, there's a lot of like other things going on behind the scenes that weren't always like making me feel great. Like I was just kind of reaching the end, and I was a little frustrated with like the team and the management. And so I'd sit down in front of the camera, and there'd be all that baggage like on my shoulders. And so I wouldn't necessarily be feeling great. And I didn't want to I might be excited about, the product I was using, but there was so much other things going on emotionally that it was like really hard for me to like protect my joy. And I don't think that necessarily came across in my videos, because I've, took a million takes and I really perfected the edit to like have the emotion that I was feeling. But I've already noticed that like a lot of that baggage is off my shoulders. And so like I sat down in front of the camera the other day, and it just felt like I just felt more free. And I didn't have like the frustrations. I didn't have Slack going off in the background. And I was just able to like, I don't know, just be more emotionally connected to what I was doing. And I don't know if that's going to show right away, but I think in the long run, what you can expect is like just a slightly more authentic video from me. I hope. And of course, life has its ups and downs, and I'm not going to feel great all of the time. But already I feel a little bit lighter, and I think that will show.
That's really funny because I almost feel slightly the opposite way, because I've got a team, and basically my job is to produce videos exclusively, where if I was on my own, I almost feel like I would be busy thinking about, all the elements of essentially running a business.
Yeah.
I really find like I'm here to make a video with Chris, and that is my job, and I can focus on that. Yeah. I'm actually less distracted that way, if that makes any sense. So it is interesting.
That's
I think
awesome.
it can go either way depending on just your personality type.
Yeah.
It can also
And
just be
I mean,
like making videos with me might just be like
paradise.
Fun.
It's incredible. Yeah.
It might just be like so fulfilling. And
it is actually fun, even though you are being sarcastic right now.
But also that's a sign of like a really good team. Like you're on a really good team, and you feel really secure in that. And I had great team members, but there was a lot that just wasn't right.
So. Oh yeah. We know, and we get it. Like there's, and I'm, there's a lot of stuff we can't go super into. I mean, we did discuss quite a lot when we were switching over the whole breakup of DP Review. That was a pretty like traumatic situation, not just for us, but for the whole photographic community. But yeah, we're like, we have family, we have responsibilities, and now it's like, sorry guys, like there's no job, and that was terrifying, and especially as basically contractors, right? With team, that's one of the different dynamics. But at the same time, like there's a lot working with a big company, and we don't have enough time to go into it, but I'm sure you felt the same thing where, there are things in the background that are difficult and stressful, and there are relationships that are positive and some that maybe aren't, and rules and things about ownership of your property and stuff like that. And that really does, I found it quite difficult to deal with sometimes, right? And just requirements for how you're going to test things, why you're testing them, what you're going to test, what you're not going to test and stuff. Like, so I feel like maybe in a similar way, although Jordan and I like to work with a team, we found the switch over to PetaPixel far more positive because it let us open up again the way that we used to, where we have a little bit more control, we have a little bit more say, and we have a little bit more collaboration and stuff like that. And so, yeah, I'm happy that you're moving on your own. I mean, congratulations. I think that's a fantastic move for you. And I'm glad that it's going to be something that's maybe more positive for you emotionally and more fulfilling creatively.
And I mean, really want to know, is there stuff you're banking? Like you said, you were just filming the other day. Like, do you already have a bunch of stuff that's kind of lined up? Or are you going to just take it a day at a time going forward?
When we logged onto this call and I was kind of a mess and the camera was over here and the mic was over there, that's me all the time. It's like it's like this beautiful chaos that somehow comes together to make a song, and I don't know how. So it's a bit of organized chaos. But right now, my goal is just to keep making stuff, and I don't have anything banked. I have a lot of ideas banked. Yeah. Here we go.
No, that was not like a sorry if it didn't sound right.
No, it was perfect. But yeah, I'm just gonna keep making stuff. And it just feels right now. Like what I'm doing feels right just to make stuff. And the business stuff is hard. I'm learning a lot. But something I like to do in my videos, and I've done my whole life, is I'm not afraid to say, I don't know what that means. Like, I don't know everything. And so like a lot of my journey has just been admitting that I don't know things. And it's amazing how welcoming people are to teaching you things. Mm-hmm. If you're welcoming to receive them, if you're able to receive them.
Yeah, it's okay to not know something and like to admit you don't know it. And for some reason, there's a lot of people.
Oh, it is?
Yeah.
Yeah, Chris, it's okay.
Becca, my question for you is, a lot of the folks that watch this channel probably watched you for your stuff dealing with image making, photography. Your channel, I'm assuming that will also keep doing that. Are you going to branch beyond cameras and stuff too? And like, how are you going to do that? Like, because the audiences on YouTube are confusing to try and figure out what the algorithm's going to serve for who. And like, so are you going to try and keep doing imaging, or are you going to do more than that beyond more just like personal tech?
Yeah, I mean, my core is like cameras and images, so there'll definitely always be a bit of that lens to my stuff. But I am going to be, oh, wow, I didn't even do that on purpose.
Every time I say focus, he does it too. Don't worry. It's his thing. Yeah.
I love it. No, thank you. This is good. So yeah, I'm definitely going to keep doing that sort of stuff. Oh my God, it might be me getting a package. UPS just rolled up. We'll see if they knock. So definitely through that lens, but I do want to broaden it to all consumer tech. And what folks can expect when they click on one of my videos is that some sense of like joy. Like, I'm going to be honest if a product sucks. But
as you should be.
Yes, of course, because there's a lot of products that suck.
Yeah.
But also like let's find like the joy and the funny and the weird and the why in that. So yeah, that's what I hope people can expect, is a little bit of joy. Yeah. Did that answer the question?
I think so.
I don't know.
Yeah.
We'll see.
No, I think that answers my questions.
Again, organized chaos.
Do you have anything that you want to ask Chris and Jordan that we haven't covered yet? Because they aren't ready for your questions. So hit them with it.
I didn't know we were being
Yes, well, I've prepared I haven't prepared anything. I think my questions are like you folks have been doing this for so long. What have you seen like really change? And like, what's working now that didn't work then? And what was working then that's not working now?
My hair color, the waistline a bit. What else has changed? Jordan's changed a bit. His hair color's changed.
I don't think that's what she means.
This is great. Yeah.
Oh.
No, this is fine. We could talk about this.
What has changed?
I mean,
like in the industry as a whole.
Yeah, like is it in terms of us producing our show, like everything has certainly gotten much more efficient, I would say, is kind of the big change there. Like, and just in terms of like, I was talking with Jaron about this recently. I can edit things the way that I used to make it 10 years ago incredibly quick now. So
Yeah.
it just means we get a little bit more ambitious, which is
But
great.
that dynamic
It's not
is
like,
always...
it used to always be, a day to shoot, a day for post, and that hasn't changed, even though, so as technology has gotten better, like the cameras are far easier to work with now, good sound built into them. I'm just able to spend more time creatively on a project rather than just like, grunt work.
But it's still like we have a pretty we have a dynamic that we've worked with for, forever, right? I mean, like our families are intertwined, we're intertwined. Like it's quite a unique dynamic. It's not like hiring somebody to work with you. It's like it's a very different dynamic that we have, which I think is why we have that longevity, and I wouldn't trade it for anything. So what's changed though, certainly what we review has changed. Like obviously technology, we're opening up a little bit too into some computer stuff, smartphone stuff for sure. We still like to make that emphasis on photography, but video of course has really become forefront.
I have to talk more.
Yeah,
it's a real
Jordan has to
problem,
talk
Becca.
more, right? And I have to tell him like that didn't sound human. Let's try it again. And so that dynamic's changed. The whole dynamic of journalism versus influencers has changed quite a bit. Like the people that you see on camera, how they present, that whole dynamic has changed, whereas we've kept ours basically the same. So it's interesting to see all those different markets kind of change, and to see a lot of your friends who used to do photography, maybe now they're doing cars or they're doing, commercial products and stuff like that. Like it's a very different kind of marketplace than it used to be that way. But it's always exciting. I mean, that's our industry has always been that way, right? Like if we reviewed the magic of pottery, I imagine as fascinating as it is, it probably stays
wider
exactly
potential
the same.
audience for sure.
Yeah, Yeah, well, I mean, I'll go to fly fishing because that's my other hobby. It hasn't changed, like not really, right? Whereas the industry we're in is always evolving, always changing. Now it's AI and all that stuff, right? Like it's an ever changing market. That's what's so cool about being in the market that we're in. But as you know, it's also challenging and it's exciting and it's frustrating sometimes, and that's kind of the cool part about it.
Yeah. Oh my God, I have so many more questions. But I'm like running out of time. But where do you see like right now there's like the big divide in like computational photography and like AI and more like traditional photography. Do you see those like coming together anytime soon? Or where do you stand with all of that tech?
I would like to see more computational photography come to the larger sensors, right? I think that would be really interesting. I don't see it happening though. Like, the smartphones obviously are really now pushing for AI. I feel like they're going to start hitting sort of hardware limitations. So that really is what makes sense for them to do something dynamic, is do it all on the back end, even more and more and more. And traditional photography, I don't know. I'd love to see more computational stuff come into it, but we're not really seeing that push.
I think there's a really clear dividing line between like computational photography I love because it's just improving the quality of things, of light that is actually captured. So that's really interesting to me. Just by stacking multiple images, those are multiple images of something that existed and light bounced off that into your camera lens. AI is less compelling to me because that's taking something that doesn't exist. But I mean, clearly things are moving in that direction and there's use for it. Like, yeah, absolutely. Use computers to train autofocus systems to do a better job and things like that. Mm-hmm. But I'm definitely less stoked than my kid when we get a Pixel 9 and, he can add a tiger chasing him riding a skateboard when he's out on his BMX bike. That isn't as compelling to me, but I think we're definitely going to see everything move in that direction as an option as well.
Yeah.
Chris thinks I'm crazy for this, but I think we're about to see a huge resurgence in photo and video journalism as soon as there is an actual, like the C2PA, so a way of verifying that an image is authentic. And once viewers understand that, I think there's going to be a huge demand for like, nope, I just want to be looking at authentic images, on this paper, or even a tech site like The Verge.
It's not that I think Jordan's crazy. I just don't think it's going to happen. There's nothing crazy about it. I just don't think it's going to happen. I mean, I tried it. I will admit, when I was younger, we got to see the whole change into digital, right? I did a lot of analog. That's how I started. It was all black and white darkroom, and I love returning to that. I think the fact that analog is still going strong is great. That's wonderful. But I've seen that whole transition to digital, and then I saw the transition to digital SLRs, and then to mirrorless, and then to smartphones, and then to AI. And so I really have kind of changed my attitude. I used to be in that camp of like, what's beautiful about analog can't be replicated. Like, anything else is garbage. And then like, the classic SLR is the way to go. Mirrorless is a toy. And like, I get all that. And I've really started to change, like, it's kind of silly in my opinion to fight against those things or to gatekeep against those things. Like, I just don't think it's not, first off, it's like fruitless. You're not going to win. And second, I just think it's more important to embrace that new technology, try to see what it can do for you. At least make an informed choice of whether you're going to use it or not. So my attitude has really switched now to be like, be open to it, try to understand it, see how it works for you. And it could be very compelling. I really, whether we like it or not, digital is always changing. And I kind of want to go with the flow now more nowadays. Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, I just think they're all different art forms.
Sure.
You use them for different things. But with that, like there's this like now it's an age-old question of like, how would you define a photo?
Captured light being reproduced in some way is how I always still look at it.
Sure.
There's no such thing as a photo according to a Samsung executive.
Yeah, but Samsung's been wrong about a lot of things, especially last year.
Yeah, especially that, I would argue.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's like every other art form, right? I mean, every art form has a different name to it, right? Based on what tools you're using and what brushes you're using and what kind of paint and what kind of media, right? Like we've made all of these different categories and labels for creative artwork. And so I'm sure this will be the same. Like, yeah, we can make photography the capture of light. We can call AI photography something different. We can call image making something different, I think. But it's all two-dimensional art. Three-dimensional pretty soon, maybe. Who knows? We'll see.
Yeah, that's coming
watch
back.
out.
Becca, I know you've got stuff to do today.
Yeah.
We thank you for joining us. There is, I think, more to talk about with you in the future. If you'd like to come back on the podcast, I think we'd be happy to have you. I think having you involved in the future sounds great. If you're interested in that.
Yeah, this was super fun. Thanks so much.
And hopefully we'll actually meet up at some point. It's weird we haven't yet.
Well, I was listening to your podcast you did last week, and you opened it with like, who's like someone you considered, I don't know, famous or something that you're now friends with.
Right. And Jordan rejected my answer.
Yeah. Terrible answer, Jaren.
It's great. But you folks are definitely people that I've watched for years and years at this point. I'm surprised that we haven't crossed paths IRL. And so it's so cool to be here. And thank you so much for having me and telling a bit of my story. And I really hope we can meet up and like have some serious hang time.
Absolutely. Yeah. And dish about our former employers. But
dish about your current one too. You can do that. I'll leave.
Oh, dude, I can't go there. But like, we wish you the best, Becca. And again, congratulations. It's a big move. I think it's a good move for you. And you're getting like, everybody at home, you should check out the video where you're explaining a lot of this, because there's a lot of information we just can't cover today, but you talk about a lot of that sort of journey that you're going through right now. And so check that out, and good luck to you. I'm sure you'll do fantastic.
Watch all her new stuff, damn it.
Yeah, thank you guys so much. Here goes nothing, to the moon.
Yeah, I know. Okay, so very cool to talk to Becca. We wish her the best, and I think she's actually going to do really well. I mean, she seems to have the drive. She seems to have the energy to make this really successful, hey?
She makes great videos, so she's going to do really well on it. And everyone in the industry loves her. I didn't mention when we were talking to, I believe it was Panasonic, something like that, and they were just like, we love Becca. All we want is reviews from Becca. And I was like, but you're talking to Chris and I right now. And they're like, Becca rules. We love Becca. And I agree. She's great.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that was very cool to talk to her. So what have you guys been up to since I've been gone? This last week has been pretty eventful.
I've been sitting around the house, mostly self-pitying. Go ahead, John.
Actually, I'm going to turn this around on you, Chris, because Jordan and I were saying you might have some grievances to air. You might want to explain something.
I don't want to talk about it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, yeah, last week was tough for me. It was disappointing. So, you may or may not know, the viewers at home, I like to fly fish, and there's a lake that we go up to in the Northwest Territories called Aylmer Lake, Aylmer, and there's a lodge up there run by Kevin and Patty, and they're great. I mean, they've had us up there a couple times. And we were ready to go this year. You know, sometimes there's delays because of COVID or because of fires and stuff. It's okay, we're going to go back this year. And so we get up there and we're told that actually they've given our spots on the plane to somebody else. And that really sucked. So basically the trip got canceled on us at the very, not last minute, like last second. And look, to give context, I mean, here's the thing. So my friend Elliot and I at Bower Troutfitters, we're the ones that go up, and they are bringing us up for free. Like the float plane flight is free, the accommodation's free up there, and it's an expensive trip, absolutely. But so to give context, we get that. We're making content for them. Very likely they also get to write us off as marketing, advertisement costs, and taxes and stuff. And so it's great. It's a good relationship where we get to enjoy this fishery. We get to make content for them, and they put us up there for free. But at the same time, it isn't free for us because we still have to fly ourselves up there. We're prepping things. We're tying flies. We're getting equipment ready. And also the thing of like, making space for it. I mean, this messed up our schedules with you guys, right? There's a busy time of year. I'm like, I got to take these 5 days off. The fly shop, we're not going to be in the store for that kind of stuff. Like there's a lot of stuff that has
you missed Condo
around.
as well.
Yeah, Condo. We didn't get to go to Sony Condo because of this event.
Yeah, we passed on it because you were going to be at this instead.
At this, right? So like we made a lot of changes, and this is months in advance. And so I get where they're at. There's a lot of hunting up there. They had some hunters from Texas a couple days before we were supposed to fly up there. A couple days before, they had some Texas hunters who were like, last minute, maybe we'll go on this trip. And then the day that we flew and arrived in Yellowknife, they're like, okay, we're going on the trip kind of thing. And that really sucks because I'm like, we've flown here. Like, we're here now. And they're like, sorry. I get it. They pay a lot of money. They need to make money. But like at the same time, that's kind of a real dick move to do to somebody. Even if they could have given us notification that 48 hours before, it would have been nice to be like, yeah, okay, we'll have to cancel flights. Maybe we can get credit. Maybe we can switch them out for long story short, it was very disappointing. I don't really think that's the way to deal with people, even if it is like promotional stuff. Like that's still not cool. And so, yeah, I'm upset about it. And it wrecked my week, and I didn't get to catch big lake trout, and it wrecked our schedules. And so I'm sorry, I'm miserable.
But you had an amazing time in Yellowknife, right?
No.
Oh, okay. No. Never mind.
I mean, it's a lovely town, but I've been there a few times. Like, you see it. Like, I wouldn't recommend flying to a town to get there, to stay overnight, and then fly back the next day. That you don't really get to experience the the majesty of that town. The museum wasn't even open. Their museum up there is amazing. It wasn't even open. So,
and you were stuck there for a while because we were chatting with you, and you were just like in Yellowknife waiting for a plane.
No, we arrived the morning before we're supposed to fly out. I then get told we're not flying out. Then I tell Elliot, who was just getting on a plane, he took a later flight, and I'm like, sorry, man, it's not happening. He's like, oh, I'm on a plane. I'm like, yeah, I'm here in Yellowknife. And it was very disappointing. And then we flew out the next morning. Obviously, we have to be on the phone for hours to change flights and stuff. There's incurred costs changing flights. Like, it really just sucked. We threw away thousands of dollars to fly to Yellowknife overnight. It was sad. So
there you go. If anyone was curious what Chris was up to.
The fishing's great. I just don't really like that like last minute. That's just not cool. You don't do that to anybody.
Yeah.
Jaron, you up to anything?
I emptied my woodshed and moved it to its final spot, and then I chopped all the wood and restacked it. And then I also planted 6 hostas that I moved from another area of the yard that was sitting in the sun. You know my wall of trees that I'm getting rid of? There were some hosta that were in front of that are just baking in the sun. They were never the good place to put them, so I moved them. And then I planted 2 hydrangeas also in there, so that whole area is going to start looking nicer. And the next year, I'm basically prepping it so that next year I can lay down the pipes to do a sprinkler system. And then, so I was working in my yard. Because my thumb is operational again, so I've been wearing gloves and doing stuff. Yeah.
So good week for Jaron.
Oh, yeah,
nice.
Productive. Yeah, I barbecued yesterday. It was delicious. Yeah.
What'd you barbecue?
I had steaks and sausages, and then I also did negi, or giant green onions that on the grill that I like to eat those too. So. Okay, well, that was a lot happier than Chris's story. Let's move on to tech support. We're going to start out with a speak pipe from Justin. Here we go.
Hi, Chris, Jordan, and Jaron. This is Justin Milton again. Can't stop listening to the podcast. Love the team. Okay. My question might be a bit of a complicated one. I want to learn more about the physics of a lens and how they specifically capture and create the canvas of our images. So most of us know that focal length, aperture, and sharpness are the textbook things to look out for when buying a lens. But I want to know what the actual physical mechanisms and how each glass element functions. So, for example, what actually causes the types of chromatic aberration we see in images, longitudinal or otherwise? So I guess my point is, could you guys please explain to me the physics of a lens and what types of glass elements you can have in said lenses?
Well, I am walking away from this one, so go, Chris.
Yeah.
I'm moving on.
Okay, well, Justin, yeah, look, we're not lens engineers, so I don't know that we would do a video about it because it is very complicated science, but I will at least attempt to give you some context on what's going on. When we review lenses, we do talk about some chromatic aberrations. We largely talk about LOCA, longitudinal chromatic aberrations, because they're hard to get rid of in post. And this is where, again, you get that color fringing in the foreground background, out of focus areas. It's really hard to remove in post. Oh my God. Yeah, the shirt. But we don't tend to talk about transverse chromatic aberrations or color fringing, because that kind of stuff is fairly easy to remove now, either post digitally or just by the nature of digital sensors, they can correct for it on the sensor. But, so give you context. So chromatic aberrations, basically, very simplistically, when light hits glass elements, all the wavelengths of light don't like to go in the same place, in the same directions. They start to split. And a large process of lens design is to get all of those misbehaving wavelengths to come back together to a singular point on the film or sensor plane, where you'll then get a nice sharp piece of focus. But sometimes some of those wavelengths are not going to line up in the same spot, and you get axial chromatic aberrations. That's where on the sensor, if it was like this, looking from the side, some of the light focuses on the sensor, but some wavelengths focus in front of it and some focus behind it. Transverse is where along the sensor plane, some of the light splits across that sensor plane. So they're focusing at the same distance, but they're not focusing in the same spot. This causes lots of issues. I mean, with axial, where the light's not focusing on the exact same spot, some behind, some in front, stopping down the lens can often fix that, because the depth of field covers that space, and that light is still going to be in focus even though it's not focused in the same spot. So that usually helps. With transverse chromatic aberrations, that's where you tend to get rainbow fringing and stuff like that. That's not really a problem anymore. Digital sensors correct for that largely. But anyways, how do they fix it? Well, they use very complicated glass elements. Sometimes they'll use low dispersion glass. What you'll often see this in lens advertisements, like, ELD glass or LD glass, low dispersion. That's just glass that doesn't split up the wavelengths very far in the first place, fluorite elements, that kind of stuff. Otherwise, they're going to use things like, maybe they'll combine different kinds of glass with different refractive capabilities together to correct some of those chromatic aberrations, or they'll grind lenses spherically, asymmetrically, so that the light does end up focusing the same spot, where a standard spherical element, it would split off a bit. I mean, again, this gets really down to stuff that I'm not an expert at, but largely the glass element designs are to make all that light come back to the same spot ideally, and that's how you get rid of a lot of chromatic aberrations, improve sharpness, and all that good stuff.
Thank you, Chris.
Enough? I tried.
It's going to have to be.
Okay.
Next one is a speak pipe from Paul.
Hi, this is Paul from Germany speaking. I have a question for all three of you. In all of the years of you testing and reviewing camera gear, which camera and lens combination gave you something special, something magical? So I'm not talking about megapixels or dynamic range or test charts. I'm talking about maybe something that you cannot really put your finger on why exactly, but the images just spoke to you. My pick would be the Canon 5D Classic, coupled with the Canon 50mm 1.8 lens. So I'm excited to hear your answers. Love the podcast and greetings from Germany.
Go, Jordan.
We've had a similar question, and I'm going to give the same response here, which is using the 0.8 times Vazen anamorphic lenses. It's a really cinematic squeeze, but these were lenses that were affordable enough. I wasn't really stressed out while using them. And clinically, they weren't that great, but I loved the look I got off them. I wound up shooting. I think the real test on if I'm having fun with a camera is if I decide I'm going to go make a home video with it. And that was a combo that I definitely did. Recently, as you'll see in an upcoming video, I did the same thing with the Kodak Super 8 camera. So that's the tip off there.
For me, it's the Leica SL2 with the 75 millimeter Nock Deluxe. F1.25, I believe, ASPH.
That sounds right. Yeah, the M mount one, right?
Yes. So I remember being in Germany for this. I have a picture of Chris that was taken with a 35 from this trip. That I remember not liking this camera until I took the lenses that are native to it off and I put an M mount lens on there, and then suddenly I was like, oh, it's wonderful. I love this. And so
I remember you having a really good time on that trip.
Oh man, everything I took a picture of, I was like, oh man.
Yeah.
So yeah.
But that was also the first time we'd hung out extensively. So I feel like some of the glow of our friendship was bleeding off on that camera package for you a little bit. That's my theory anyways.
Maybe.
Yeah. That's a tough question for me, and I think you guys are touching on this too. It's like when you talk about a lens camera combination that really struck you maybe on a technical level or something like that. I don't personally think that way very often. So I really think more about what kind of experience I had while shooting it. That doesn't necessarily get translated into the best photography. If that makes sense. I go to things like I really enjoyed using the M6 with film, the Leica M6 in Germany, just because that's an experience that I always wanted to have that I hadn't had up to that point. So that for me, I really enjoyed. I also really have a magical experience. Some of my favorite times shooting, it's not brand specific, but when I have a camera with an 85 mil lens that I like, and I just have that, like if I just test 85 mils, I often like that experience. There's something about walking around the streets, shooting with an 85 mil only as a focal length that to me feels kind of magical. And I like that experience. And I've had that with Sony. I've had that with Nikon. All the brands. I really do like that experience. Otherwise, monochrome, like M11 monochrome, that was a really nice experience. I really enjoyed that. Even though, frankly, the photos I got in Montana didn't blow me away with that kit. I mean, they were nice, but I did really enjoy that experience as well.
All right. Next one is a speak pipe. Hold on, I lost my place. There it is. Okay, actually, no, I lied. It's not a speak pipe. It's an email from Robert Hunt. Hello, PetaPixel team. I wanted to submit a voice recording, but I'm recovering from a cold and it's pretty rough. What camera gives you the most joy in shooting, modern or not? So this is very similar to the last one. Mine is surprisingly the D780, which no one talks about. It's fast, does insanely well with high ISO, and has wonderful OVF. So this to me is a different answer than the last one. And for me, it's my dad's Nikon F. That gives me joy. Even though it's not really anything to do with the camera itself. It's more just like the experience.
Yeah, the sentimental experience, yeah.
Yeah, in terms of actually shooting, for video, I got to go with that Kodak Super 8. I had a blast. I had such a good time.
Yeah.
Chris can attest to this, and so can my wife and kids. Man, I loved that camera. Just fun to shoot. And again, I'm looking at it outside of results here. But then the other one is the Leica Q3. The Q2 before it, I've always enjoyed that series of camera. Those are just the most fun photography cameras for me.
Yeah.
Yes, Jordan is actually reviewing that camera, by the way. It is on the board. It is going to happen soon. He promises.
Yes, the Kodak 8 camera is coming. I was editing it yesterday.
Oh, I'm going to go a different route on this one, because I kind of talked about my magical experiences on the last one. So here, for me, I'm gonna classify joy in a different way. Doing this job, you're testing so much gear all the time, every week. There is an aspect of stress and difficulty in like learning the new interface and like testing the new features and stuff. I mean, that's our job, right? And so that is fun in a way. It's interesting in a way, but it is very much like you have to be focused. You have to be keyed in, really studying stuff. And I wouldn't necessarily call that joy. It's definitely more evaluation, if that makes sense. I hope that makes sense. So for me, the joy that I miss and the joy that I think a lot of other people feel is that joy they have when they're using a camera they're really familiar with. And it becomes like an extension of you. And it becomes like, you're familiar with it, you like it. And so after I collect my big check from Sony, I'll say that I actually find I have the most joy when I use like an A7 R5 or something like that with whatever lens we're testing, because that is one of the cameras that I use the most. And the joy, honestly, for me with Sony, it's not that the cameras are that sexy or, the image quality is fine, but it's not, it's image quality. It's a camera. What I really enjoy about the experience is just how I don't have to think when I'm using one. Like where it just works and the focus is usually incredibly accurate and it's predictable. And I know that's not very exciting, but there's a joy in using a product where you can just kind of shut your brain off from that and not worry about the technicalities and be able to trust the camera, be able to trust what it's going to do and what it's not going to do, because then you really start thinking more about the actual photograph in front of you. So that's where I derive joy in photography. It was when I'm not thinking about the camera, but I'm actually thinking about the experience.
Yeah, I'd say the GH7 is the same for me. It's something where the camera's invisible. I can just get what I need out of it consistently.
I think that's a great. I say it quite a few times on the videos that we do when we're reviewing products, but when there's as little as possible between me and the image, that I find to be a really enjoyable experience.
Okay, we're gonna do one more speak pipe because it's been a long podcast, so we're gonna just do a couple more things. So first, the last tech support question is from Josh. Let's listen in.
Hey, Chris, Jordan, and Jared. Wanted to ask you guys a couple quick questions. My family's going to be taking our first trip to Japan next summer in June, specifically Tokyo, Kyoto, and Nara. And wanted to see, one, if there's any used camera stores that you suggest. I heard there's some great ones in Tokyo, but figured I'd see if there's any specific that you guys enjoy going to, and if you had any tips. Second question, probably more importantly for the rest of the family, was if you guys had any suggestions as far as things we really should see, food we should try. Anything specific was kind of a must-do for you guys. My son's 16, my daughter's 17, and my wife and I and the kids, we're pretty adventurous, willing to try different things. We enjoy big cities, we enjoy hiking. We're pretty open to different types of food. And the only thing specific I can think of is my wife does love botanical gardens and gardening in general. So anyway, appreciate what you guys do. Love the podcast, the show, and just really appreciate it. Thanks.
It's going to be hot. Good job.
In June?
It's gonna be hot.
Yeah.
I mean, like, what beautiful places to visit. Tokyo, Kyoto, and Nara are fantastic. I guess for my suggestions that I would say, like camera stores in Tokyo, they're all pretty cool. We visited a few. I don't know if I'd pick one out specifically. We visited some like really tiny shops where dude's like repairing stuff
I
right
love
there.
those ones.
Yeah, we've also, a lot of used camera shops, and they're all very nice to kind of explore. Japan to me is, although you want to have a lot of different camera gear, Japan to me, especially Tokyo, is very much like a wide angle city in a lot of cases, because you're often closed in, tight quarters and that kind of stuff. And it's really nice to have, like, there's no straight lines. Everything bends to another road and another street. And so wide angles for sure. For not as nice. My impression is I haven't been, but everybody I talked to, like, yeah, it's fine. There's deer. One
I would say it's
pretty
good for like half a day.
Yeah,
I don't know that you need to stay in Nara the whole time.
Yeah. Kyoto's amazing. Again, like, if your wife likes gardening and stuff, all the gardens are beautiful. Of course, you have to do the classics like the Golden Pavilion. You have to do the Kinkakuji. You have to do Fushimi Inari.
I was about to say that one.
Sure. And that's a lot of travel. But I would also say as a rule in Japan, honestly, once you've seen like 3 or 4 temples, you've kind of seen them all. So unless you're seeing the really big ones, if I was going to go back to Kyoto, we were driving through with this really cool, he was like a guide / taxi driver.
I was trying to find his business card. I was rifling around here because he was incredible.
He was super cool. And it's like everybody goes to the big tourist temples, and I get it, but honestly, we drove past so many temples there that the locals go to, and those are the ones that I want to go to. I think they have the more beautiful gardens. They have like a quieter aspect. Like the tourism in Kyoto is nuts. Yep. There's so many people, it's crowded. I would definitely like go right through Kyoto, the middle of it, and go to the temples that people don't go. And I know I'm taking a lot of time. The last thing I would say is, as far as food goes, if you want to be adventurous, take a couple days and go stay in a ryokan, which is like a traditional inn, maybe onsens with hot springs, but a ryokan where you're basically staying like a bed and breakfast, usually up in the mountains and stuff. That's really cool. There you'll get like authentic food. It's quite
some of it you won't like. That's okay.
Yeah, that's okay. It's quite the gastronomical experience. Last thing I'll say is in Kyoto, go to Arashiyama Park. Take a boat ride down the river. That'd be amazing. Go see the bamboo forest. It's all right. But the park itself is gorgeous. Yeah.
If you're going to
diarrhea and use one of their traditional toilets for the first time ever in your life. Big plus.
I was hoping we were going to loop back to that. I do also want to mention, just in terms of camera stores, as if he knew this question was coming in, our good friend and frequent guest on this show, Gordon Lang, also has a travel channel called Gordon's Travel Tips, and he just dropped one on Tokyo camera stores. So check that out, because he's there all the time.
There you go. In between and around the general area of Kyoto and Nara, there's Seki Post Town, which is like, it's a landmark. It's designed to look like an old town. It's outside of Kyoto and Nara. It's like to the, I guess, east. There's a place in Osaka, which is not far from there. Chris would hate it because it's all the food he doesn't like, but it's Izakaya Toyo is a place that I've wanted to go, and that looks really great. And then there's also the Lake Biwa Museum, which is north of Kyoto, and the Arashiyama Bamboo Forest, which is, it's a touristy thing, but you know what? You're going there. You may as well see it. That is also super neat.
Yeah. It is straight up a back alley, though. It's just somebody's back alley.
We should just do a separate podcast where we talk about traveling Japan, I think. We could
it would
clearly
make
all
me
do this.
super sick to
or
not
just the
be
places
doing it.
we've traveled. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. That is, as food goes, make sure you eat curry and
curry for breakfast every day. You'll be unstoppable.
Okonomiyaki. He didn't like those things, but those are my favorite.
No, takoyaki's gross. Okonomiyaki.
Takoyaki is delicious.
Report back.
Get out of here. Dongo's good.
Oh, dongo's gross.
Oh my God, really? You don't like anything? Oh my. Okay, we're just going to move on. The next section is never read the comments. I got a couple in here I wanted to read, even though we never read them, which means we always read them. On the Instax and analog video, Pyro Maximilian says that wide shot of the two of you standing awkwardly waving at the camera was an integral part of growing up in the 70s and 80s. This might be your best video yet. Thank you. So good job on
that shot.
What was your reaction when you finally saw the developed film, Chris? I'm curious.
Oh, you're curious. I mean, look, I'm going to be honest. I saw the joy in your face, which I appreciate. I think that was great. And the experience was neat, and the camera sounds cool. And it gives you a very authentic 8mm look, which means it's vibrating constantly and there's crap all over the frames, and like it's soft and cool muted colors. And so that's neat. So I think it has to go beyond the experience, because you could frankly replicate a lot with the digital filter. It was fine, but it's not something I would creatively want to look at on a regular basis personally. But the experience was neat.
I couldn't find the comment, but somebody asked why it looked so dirty, like the development, like why is there so much crap on the film, Jordan?
Yeah, I talked to my good friend Alex Mitchell, and he said, like, yeah, man, just developing it and stuff, there's gunk on there from the first time you screen, a fresh print from it. So apparently that's pretty standard, but yeah, and also because the negative is so small, it really exacerbates any scratches and dust and anything like that.
Yeah,
for sure.
It's cool. It's a cool effect, but I wouldn't return to it on a regular basis. I mean, but I'm glad you enjoyed it.
Petrol Poodle says that I just want to say that the color grading general image you've got out of the GH7 in that video is absolutely beautiful. I'm a Sony a7S III and a7 IV shooter and don't particularly sit on a high horse about sensor size. But on the other hand, I don't think you've given Micro Four Thirds the credit it deserves either. I don't think I have. Not you. You have definitely, Jordan.
Oh, good,
it was just aesthetically delightful. and actually quite refreshing not having everything behind the subject enormously out of focus. Great videos always.
But people also really like the Canon 50mm.
That's what I was about to say. I went hard the other way with the Light Lens Lab video, which I shot a chunk of at F1 II.
Yeah. Well, speaking of that, Marky Tio says that you didn't measure the weight of that lens in a Noct, and therefore they have no idea how heavy it is.
I know. I'm sorry.
It's the fractions.
That on
the
our
weights were very similar on all of the 3 different materials, but I didn't think people wanted like an 8/17 of a Noct. And frankly, I didn't want to do the math. Jordan. I was on a tight timeline. We dropped 4 videos last week, everyone. Yeah. You can lose a Noct for a week. Good. I'm grateful.
KGK video says, I hope that using the Loca shirt itself to do the Loca test becomes the standard. Actually,
I just don't want to wear it every single video, but I will do my best.
Okay. Finally, we're going to end the episode with a feel-good story of the week. Scientists have found a way to make your camera battery's life extend 50% longer. So this is the lithium-ion battery thing. So it's not like the battery life per charge is longer. It's that the battery doesn't physically die as fast.
Yeah.
So dying lithium-ion batteries are an all too familiar problem for everyone, as nearly all modern electronics rely on them, including smartphones, laptops, tablets, and cameras. Eventually, the battery's total capacity fades and dies. But scientists have discovered that giving batteries their first charge ever at unusually high currents increased their average lifespan by 50%, while decreasing their initial charging time from 10 hours to just 20 minutes. If this research can be translated to real-world lithium-ion battery production, as they believe, it could soon be the case that smartphones offer good battery performance for more than just a couple of years, and camera batteries could also deliver consistent performance for a really long time, since they're typically not being used as heavily as a smartphone battery would be. So there's been a lot of conversations about what to do after lithium ion, because lithium ion is there are a lot of problems with it. But we haven't really found a good solution. Sodium ion, I think, is one that is possible, but they tend to not be as effective or last as long. If
we're really hitting a wall with battery life, is what I just keep hearing over and over.
You just like fly a kite up into a lightning storm and connect it like directly to the first time you charge the battery and go from that. And that seems to work really well.
Yes, you can Ben Franklin it. That's what they're saying.
Just Ben Franklin or Frankenstein it, and it will do well.
How did it take so long before someone was like, "Oh, for the initial charge, let's give it a supercharge"?
Hit it with a ton of voltage.
Yeah, it seems like something people might have come up with in the last.
I'm sure it's more
20 years.
complicated than that scientifically, but I mean, yeah.
Nope.
Yeah. It's
nope. Just hook it up to 2 car things, and they go like that for the first charge, and it saves all your batteries forever. Sorry, I think you were trying to end the show, Jared.
Yeah, it's an extra long episode. Thanks for sticking with us, everyone. Thanks again to Becca for joining us, and we'll catch you all next week for another CarCast. See you later. Bye.
Bye.